Hey guys, welcome to the 2 a.m. Pipe on the Patio. Tonight I'm smoking my Rattrays number 2. And in it, I'm smoking Peter Stokovy's PS41. Cube Cut. I love this stuff, man. I love this PS41 Cube Cut. Good stuff. So tomorrow morning, my wife, Mrs. Onion, flies out to Virginia for her interview on Monday. So if y'all could keep her in your prayers for that, that would be much appreciated. We should know by week's end if she has the job or not. It's between her and one other person from what we understand, so she has a pretty good chance. So I was just in the house listening to an album that just absolutely changed my life. I was probably 15 when I heard this album, and it was by Mississippi Fred McDowell, and it was called I Do Not Play No Rock and Roll. And this was at the point in my life when I was working my way back from Eric Clapton and Cream. And starting to discover all of the real blues artists. And I had discovered, Freddie King and B.B. King and Albert King and James Cotton. I hadn't yet found Muddy Waters, which was another just completely life-changing experience, as was Howlin' Wolf. But I got this album. I had guy across the street and I had got this little job handing out flyers in the neighborhood. Guy had paid us between us $40 between us, so $20 a piece, which in 1975 was a ton of money for a 15-year-old kid. He handed us this big stack of flyers, 500 flyers. We just had to go put them in the doorknobs of garage doors. Back then, garage doors had handles on them. They weren't, you had to actually lift the garage door back in those days. So we spent a Saturday just walking around a couple different neighborhoods and just putting these little flyers on the doors and got $20 for it. So my brother and I went to Tower Records and I bought Mississippi, Fred McDowell's album, I do not play no rock and roll. And I remember bringing that home. And the first song on the album, the first minute of it, he's just talking. And I just was like spellbound. He was kind of picking on the guitar and talking about his style and how he started playing with a beef bone, and I was just, like, what's going on here? This is. And then he started playing, and it was something I had never heard before. There was just this rawness to it, and each song had just this power and this rawness to it that just was powerful. It was just this emotionally powerful music that I had never, even B.B. King and Freddie King and Albert King, compared to this, their stuff was much more polished, This was just raw and emotional and powerful. He played that slide guitar on it, and it turned things upside down for me. And I can remember just putting the headphones on and just sitting in front of the stereo for hours and hours and hours and listening to this record for days and weeks and months, and just soaking it in and grabbing my guitar and trying to figure out what the heck he was doing. There's a lot of, I'm a blues guitarist, and I've, played for, I started playing in 1974, and I've been playing ever since, and I've made a little bit of a, squeezed out a little bit of a career out of it. Made a little bit of a mark for myself, and I think back to that moment, listening to that album, and that was a defining moment for me. When I look back on the little bit of success I've had in my career, I can look back on that moment sitting in my living room with the headphones on and listening to that record and thinking that was a moment that pushed me to a little bit of success that I've had. And I've had a lot of those moments in my life that have pushed me, but that was a big one, that Mississippi Fred McDowell album. And I'll put a link down below, and you can go to YouTube, and it's got a list of all the tracks on that record, and you can, if you want to, you can listen to them. But That's a huge one for me, man. That was just a massive, eye-opening, heart-changing, soul-changing moment in my life musically. And there were many along the way in my life that moved me, but that one in particular. That one made me want to be a blues player. I mean, it made me want to play the blues. Albert King's King of the Blues guitar was one that made me want to play blues, but this one made me want to play blues and tried as hard as I could to play it with respect and try to play it right. And not that I ever did that or ever achieved that, but it made me want to try and do the best I could to play it right. It gave me a respect for the music, and I hear a lot of musicians, blues musicians, and which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but they mix the blues with funk and jazz and all that kind of stuff, and that's awesome. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted my music to be blues. I wanted it to be pure, and I did mix it with rock. I'm not saying I achieved that, but I wanted people, when they heard my music, to know that I was playing blues. It wasn't funk and it wasn't jazz, and that it was blues. And it was coming from a place of respect for the guys who did it before me, and Mississippi Fred McDowell in particular, and Muddy Waters later. Those two guys in particular were just massive. And Howlin' Wolf was another one. But Mississippi Fred McDowell was that album was a life-changing album for me, man. And it was raw, and it was emotional, and it was piercing to my heart when I listened to it. It hit me right in the soul, and it spoke volumes to me, and I couldn't explain it to you, but it hit me right in the soul, and few albums in my life did that to me. That one did it. Howlin' Wolf's Rocking Chair album did that. There were tons of Muddy Waters albums that did that. In particular, his Live at Mr. Kelly's. Man, that one just killed me. There were many Muddy Waters albums that man was on an emotional plane all his own. But Mississippi Fred McDowell was this album was something special to me. You know, it just moved my soul and changed my life and made me want to play the blues. As he says, the straight and natural blues. And that stuck with me, man. That straight and natural blues stuck with me my entire life, man. It was just, I played a straight and natural blues. I do not play no rock and roll. And that stuck with me, man. But anyway, I'll put a link down below to the songs from that album. It's a whole list of the songs on that album. You can listen to them if you want to. It's an amazing album. Talk to you guys later, man.